In episode 102, we delve into the question of why do I struggle to reach my goals as often as I do? And in the process, we're going to talk about a formula that works like virtually 100% of the time in solving some of the problems and helping you to achieve the goals that are important to you. And towards the end, we'll also share a case study that demonstrates the principles that we're going to be talking about. Just to make it clear, the focus of this channel is to demonstrate the power of the kingdom of God in solving everyday problems. In achieving that goal, we focus on the timeless principles of the Bible and use the practicality of science in achieving the outcomes. But the question is, how does that manifest itself? Not a situation where you try this and you try that to solve a particular problem or to achieve a particular outcome. And you've poured money into it and you've consulted people, you've tried this and that, but nothing seems to work. What is the cause? But more importantly, how do you actually get to fix that problem so you can achieve the goals that are very important to you? What are some of the things that people struggling with this particular problem actually say? They would say to themselves, but why me? I've been working so hard, but why can't I make it past a particular point? What you find is everything seems to work well until you get to a certain point. Beyond that point, on a consistent basis, things just fall apart. Why me? And sometimes you say, but I'm smarter than that Joe over there. How come he's making it? How come she's making it? But I'm stuck. What am I missing? But what is the problem caused by? Now, obviously, to come up with a solution, we need to understand what the root cause of the problem is. What normally happens is any problem would have different layers of causes. But usually, if you deal with the problem at the root cause and you solve it there, everything else above it tends to fall away. But today, we're just going to focus on one aspect that is particularly quite important. And what that is this. In life, you achieve results on the basis of who you have become or what you have become. And I'll explain in a minute what that means. It's really an issue of identity. For that to make sense, you have to understand life is governed by principles. You choose the action, and principles determine the outcome. So, the obvious thing is if life is ruled by principles, you need to find out if I want to achieve a particular outcome, what principles are applicable, and you align yourself with those principles. Now, what's really fascinating is there are two levels on which principles operate. We have, let me just put it this way, we have principles that govern the natural world. Gravity is one of those principles, and we have principles that govern the spiritual world. I know some people is like, what? The spiritual world? But yes, life is both natural and spiritual. When a person is lying there in ICU, you would hear doctors say, it's up to you to fight. What are they talking about? It's the body gets its life from something that is spiritual. It's the spark of life. And once that spark is extinguished, that's when a person dies. In other words, you live on the natural plane, you also live on the spiritual plane. There's a video that explains this in a lot more detail, so we're not going to go into that. The point here is principles operate on at least two levels. It's principles that govern how the natural world works, and we've spoken about gravity, and there are many others that we can talk about. And there are principles that govern how the spiritual world works. Now, the difference between the natural world and the spiritual world is the spiritual world is really about relationships, while the natural world is primarily about increase, about creating, about achieving specific goals. Obviously, because you're a being that lives in both worlds, you both spiritual and natural, the two tend to work together. I spoke about how you get results on the basis of who or what you have become. And I'm going to be explaining that in a lot more detail. But I think consistent with that is the principle that Your outcome is based on what the principles say. So you take the action and the result is defined by the principles. So the smart thing is, obviously, if you want outcome B, you need to find out what principles are applicable and align your actions with those principles. Now let's look at a natural example to show that. Look at an aircraft that's flying. There are four main forces that are operating on that aircraft. The first one is gravity, that's trying to pull the aircraft down based on its weight. The second one is lift, that's based on the configuration of the wings. And what lift does is it moves the aircraft upwards. So it's basically working in the opposite direction to gravity. And the two others are thrust. Thrust comes from the engines. And what do the engines do? They're propelling the aircraft forward. The other force operating is friction. It's trying to pull this aircraft not to move forward. In aerodynamic circles, they don't usually use the word friction. They talk about drag, but it's really the same thing. So what am I saying? I'm saying for you to get to a particular outcome, you're going to be having all these forces that are going to be working on you, some trying to help you get to the goal that's important to you, others are going to be trying to sabotage your mission. So you've got to be clear which ones are for what, so you can maneuver your own aircraft, so to speak, in the right way. I spoke about how you get results on the basis of what you have become or who you have become. That essentially is identity. Identity is what you are or who you are, you know, and it has 5 stages. And it's very important to understand how these 5 stages work. The first stage is the stage which is called the legal stage. The second one is the template. And the third one is you taking the template, making it part of your mindset. The fourth one is you practically implementing what the template says. And the fifth one is you're maturing as part of that identity. Now, I know it sounds pretty theoretical. Now, let me give you a practical example. The day I get married, I become a husband legally. So that's step one. Now, what I need to do is I'm no longer a bachelor. So I need to stop hanging out with my bachelor friends. At least, I shouldn't be spending as much time with them as I used in the past, because I have a wife now. So when I come back from work, I need to go spend time with my wife because we're building a family. I can't or I shouldn't be going out and spending time with the boys like I used to, because my identity has changed. I'm no longer a bachelor, I'm a husband legally. That's number one. It's very important. Number two, I need to find out what is a template of a perfect husband. And that's like more like desk research. What is a template of a perfect husband? So a perfect husband, of course, after work he goes to be with his wife, and maybe he chooses together with the wife to go out for dinner or something. But the template of a perfect husband is what you need to be clear about. That's step two. Step number three is you need to take this template of a perfect husband and make it part of your mindset. You have to say to yourself, I am making a decision to be this perfect husband. But that's just a theoretical stage. What is really it's important though, but what is really, really important, what makes a difference, it's step number four, where you live that which is a perfect template. Okay, so you have number one, you become something legally. The number two, it's what is the perfect template of this that I am? I'm a husband, the perfect template of a husband. And number three, I take this template, I make it part of my mindset. And number four, I practically live this template. And number five is you mature in that identity at the end of the process. Now, let me use another example. Now, when you have a legal problem, there are many lawyers you can go to. But what happens is you will choose a particular lawyer because you've heard this lawyer is very good with the work that they do. Now, why is lawyer A better than lawyer B? Both of them went to the same law school, for example. The difference would be lawyer A and lawyer B became lawyers legally because they finished all their legal studies, okay, and they, were registered as legal practitioners and so on. But number two, lawyer B, let's say for example, lawyer B would have said, okay, what is the template of a perfect lawyer, of like an excellent lawyer? And let's say lawyer B comes from a family of lawyers, and the father would have been, or maybe he's got a mentor who says, look, this is how you become a great lawyer. You need to understand what your clients are really wanting, that kind of stuff, those kind of details. And so you need to understand what the perfect template or the template of a perfect lawyer is. This is what lawyer B gets told. Now, lawyer A just, okay, I'm a lawyer, and then he goes to practice and he starts doing things. The difference between the two would be lawyer B will make a decision that I know what the template of a perfect lawyer is, and I am going to become that. I'm going to make that part of my thinking, part of my commitment to becoming the best lawyer I can be. Now, lawyer A is like, okay, his template is, it doesn't have too many things. It's like, okay, this and this, like he's whinging it as he's going along. So do you see already what the difference between the two is? The difference is in approach because they have different ideas of what makes a great lawyer. Now, of course, what you have in your head doesn't really matter to me as a client. What I want to see are the practical expression of what we're talking about. I want results. So this is where you'll see lawyer B becoming very good. He prepares for his work much better. He does all the things that great lawyers do. Now, lawyer A will be like, trying and finding his way all over the place. The difference is lawyer B is going to become a much better lawyer. Why? Because he took the trouble to find out what is the template of a perfect lawyer, and he made that part of his mindset. Now, lawyer A kind of was just whinging it along. Maybe he saw somebody, oh, okay, I like that guy, but he never actually sat down and say, what is this template that, or the person that I need to become as a lawyer? Now, obviously, the results come with the practical expression of the work that they do, the experiential component of identity. That's where we as clients will see, okay, this one is a better lawyer, this one is a better doctor, this one is a better. So now let's coming back to the issue. Why are you struggling to get to the goals that are important to you? Why are you struggling to get the results that are important to you? So let's look at the 5 stages. Let's say the objective, something that you struggle with, let's make it simple, is to lose weight. Okay, it's a simple example that everybody can relate to. So you have to get to a point when you say, you know what, I'm sick and tired of being overweight. So that is a decision that you make. It's the first stage, the legal stage. And number 2 is to find, to lose weight, what is the process? What are the main principles that are applicable? Now, there are 2. One is you need to eat right, you need to move right. So it's obviously the diet and the exercising. Those are the principles. So number 1, I have made a decision that I am going to lose weight. And number 2, what is required? Like, what are the principles that I need to live by in order to achieve the goal that's important to you? It's the template I spoke about. Number 3, you have to tell yourself, and this is what we call intentionality. This is absolutely, absolutely key. And this is where you see the difference between lawyer A and lawyer B. The difference between you achieving the goal and you not achieving the goal. Somebody will say, oh, okay, I'm gonna lose weight, but and they probably aren't gonna end up losing weight. So it's about intention. I am going to do this, no matter what it's gonna take me, because it's important for me for whatever reason. Now, the real issue, obviously, where the rubber meets the road, it's stage 4 or step 4, where you practically do the things that are consistent with the goals that are important to you. And that's really where you see lawyer A and lawyer B, the difference in the output. The output, it's a consequence of the input. If you keep doing the same old things, you're going to keep getting the same old results. So the reason you say, okay, intentionality, now I'm intentional about what I'm going to do, You effectively saying, what do I have to do differently to achieve the goals that are important to me? And this is where principles come into the picture. What have I been doing in the past? Now, critically, you are going to transform. And this is really the tricky part. We all want great results, but not many of us want to go through the transformation. Remember, transformation is not pleasant. I mean, if say you weigh whatever you weigh, you feel it's too much, and you want to go down in weight, you're going to have to exercise, so you're going to have to start eating differently. It's difficult, to say, oh, I'm used to eating pizzas and hamburgers all the time. Now I must cut down on that. But if you are very clear, I need to lose weight or I need to achieve a particular goal, you say these are the principles that I need to align with, because it's the principles that are going to carry me to the outcome that I desire. And so the issue about transformation is it's going to cost you in terms, obviously, time, in terms of money, in terms of energy. So you have to be prepared to pay the price. You were here, now you want to get there. So to get there, you have to go there. You can't be here and there at the same time. So if you want to be there, you need to leave where you are and get to where you want to be. Now, to get to where you want to be, obviously, it's going to cost you time, energy, and a whole host of other things. Now, the other part that's very, very critical is, and really it's part of the whole transformation process, are the problems that you're going to encounter along the way. We tend to see problems as bad things, but problems are really a guide. If you have pain here and you have pain there, that pain is telling you something is not right there. You need to do something about it. There's this elderly gentleman who, he never exercised throughout his life, and he was telling me how he was experiencing, moments of pain here and moments of pain here and moments of pain there. And it was the same conversation that we had. Is if you want to achieve a better outcome, what are you prepared to do to achieve that outcome? What transformation do you need to go through? And he started exercising, and it was not great things. He was exercise at home, do some push-ups and this and this and this and this. And after a few months, it's like all those pains are gone. It's a very simple example that demonstrates if you want to achieve a particular outcome, the first thing you need to understand is one, principles are going to determine whether you will get to that outcome or not. So it's important to align with those principles. What's also important is the trade-off that you need to make. When we spoke about the two lawyers, the trade-off you have to make is, or the husband, I enjoy spending time with my boys, but I'm married now. There's something greater that I'm aspiring to. So I need to cut off ties. I mean, doesn't mean you stop being with your boys, but it means you don't give them as much attention as you used to in the past. So part of the problem we struggle is because we want to do the same things that we've always done and hoping to get a different results. To put it differently, we don't want to go through the transformation. So if there's a goal that you've been working, trying to work towards achieving, but you've been struggling, ask yourself, what transformation is required for me to achieve that goal? I said earlier that I'll talk about a case study. And I like case studies because case studies demonstrate how the average smart person can sometimes end up getting inferior results compared to somebody who was not as smart or who is not as smart, simply because of the things that on how they carry themselves around. Now, we're going to talk about a lady. Her name is Chelsea. She was talented. Whenever she had a project, she would excel at what she was doing. But the problem sometimes with smart people is they tend to become lazy at some point. They're like, you know what? I don't have to study as much, or I don't have to put as much effort. I'll figure my way out, because generally they tend to see things that many other people don't. But the problem was she got lazy along the way, and she was like, oh no, you know what? I'm surprised that I'm struggling as much as I am to achieve goals A and B that are so important to me, that are part of my life plan. But it took Chelsea sitting down and saying, Why exactly am I struggling? Why can't I achieve some of these goals when I have achieved very, very complicated things in the past? And it really came down to the conversation that we've just had. It was, okay, have you actually made a clear intentional decision that this is important to me and I'm going to do what it takes to achieve that goal? Intentionality really comes down to devotion. Are you devoted to the outcome that you're talking about? That's really what we say. And number two, you have to be clear, obviously, that you're going to pay the price. And that's really when Chelsea began to sit down, and she realized, you know what, she was saying one thing, but she wasn't really committed to the goals that were important, because in the past she had achieved a lot of the goals without putting as much effort. And she had to make the decision. This is the important part about making a decision. Two critical things. One is, what are the things that you're going to be doing differently going forward? The second part, which is equally important, what are the things you're going to stop doing? Because you only have so much time in a day, and to have more time to do certain things, you need to cut out certain things. We tend to think of what am I going to stop doing as a bad thing. But think about it this way. If you're trying to achieve a particular weight objective, one of the quickest ways to lose weight is to cut out the bad things that you're eating. And that alone is going to generate and propel you towards achieving, your results in the shortest possible time. But at the same time, you need to be implementing certain things, because the way habits work is you need to replace one habit with another. You can't have a vacuum. And that's essentially what we see. So these are the things that Chelsea had to go through. Number one, she like, okay, I made a decision, but I was not very intentional about it. I wasn't devoted to that goal. And number two, she said, okay, now part of the transformation is this is going to cost me. What am I prepared to let go of? And what am I going to start doing now? She basically cleared off her desk and minimized the time that she spent with the girls. And she made a decision to go attend public speaking clubs, because it was part of what she needed to improve to achieve the goals that are important to her in the long term. Through making those set of changes, Chelsea began to move gradually in the direction of where she wanted to go. But the important part I want you to be aware of is Chelsea became a different person. She transformed into the better version of herself. And she saw the problems that were coming along the way as she was walking this journey as guides. In school, we write tests. What do tests do? Tests are a reflection to you of how much you actually know, give or take. And we can debate this stuff, right? So you thought, oh no, I understand algebra or I understand calculus, what you've covered. And you like go to the test and suddenly like, oh, I didn't know any of those things. I couldn't answer those problems. So the test was really a mirror showing you thought you understood, but you actually didn't understand as much as you thought you did. That's what problems do. They are a form of a test. And sometimes they say, look, if you keep having this problem, sometimes, let me give you a simple example. Every time you come home late, there are guys who chase you. The way to solve that problem is stop going out late. Simple. Or use a different path. My point is, sometimes we want to have these results, but we don't want to do the work. We don't want to become the person for whom those results come naturally or with minimal effort. For example, if you want to cook great food, some people are talented, they just get in the kitchen, they mix this and this and this, and they end up with great food. But for the rest of us, the majority of us, we have to be intentional. I want to become a great chef, or even if not just a maybe professional chef, but at home, I want to become a great cook. I want to cook great meals. So the journey is going to be, okay, I've made a decision. So that's legal stage. Number two, how do I do that? What is the perfect template of a great cook? You follow, great cooks on YouTube, or if maybe you know somebody who's a great cook, you spend time with them. And so this is how you get to the perfect template. And this becomes part of, that's where the intentionality part comes in, and you start doing it. So you're basically becoming a great cook, somebody who will give great food. But you see how the transformation happened. You getting good results because you have become that person. That's essentially what we're saying. Golfers and professional athletes, they practice and practice and practice to perfect their craft. You are going to win because you've spent a lot of time transforming yourself. You need to become the person who will be able to achieve those results, perhaps with minimal effort, because like we saw in the example of an aircraft, you're always going to get turbulence and a whole lot of things. But if you have done your preparation, you align with the principles, you become the person, it's part of your identity, who is the person for whom these results are going to come with a lot less ease. That's essentially what we're doing. This is the journey that Chelsea had to walk. Now the question to you is, as we closing, is what does this mean to you? What are you going to do differently? The most important part is the first one, intentionality. How important is this to you? Because so many of us make commitments. Oh, I'm going to do this, I'm going to do this. But we just making those commitments. We're really not intentional about it, and we're not serious about it. That's the first part. And the second part is to understand what the transformation you're going to go through is about, or it's like. You are going to have to pay the price. And it always helps if you have somebody to walk the journey with, or somebody you're accountable to, or somebody who can guide you through the process. So my challenge to you is those goals that you've been struggling to achieve, sit down and be clear how intentional you are about achieving those goals. And number two, you've got to be absolutely clear that you have to become that person. There are certain things you need to stop doing. There are certain things you need to start doing that will help you become that person who will achieve those goals. But most importantly, understand its principles that rule the world. You have to find out what principles are applicable and align with them. Like in the case of aircraft, you have to understand that some are going to be working for you, others are going to be working against you. But if you clear what you're prepared to sacrifice, the price you're prepared to pay, you will always achieve the goal. Not always going to be an easy journey or a quick journey, but hey, nothing worthwhile in life is quick. Life is about the transformation that you go through. It's about the identity, who you end up becoming. I hope you found the video helpful, and if you have, subscribe to our channel and not just share with us what else you'd like us to talk about, so that we can have content that is helpful to you. See you in the next video. Bye bye.